Last week, 521 of you told me your dream car. Something you've had in that noggin for a long time. Something that predates almost every other dream you've ever had. But the car you taped to your wall at 14 is the reason I think a stranger has already decided that you don't belong here. Now, there are three things going on with that statement, all backed by actual research and not just this big old forehead. And stick with me, this is a video I've wanted to try and talk about for a long time. I just didn't really know how, because I think once you have all three, everything about how car people treat each other is going to make sense. So originally I fell into this topic when I shared a story on my Instagram. I wanted you to imagine that there were two 16-year-olds, Liam and Olivia. Now, both of them want fun cars, but there's a big difference. Liam has wealthy parents who don't care as much about cars, so they just end up buying him a G80 M3. Lucky dog! Now, it's ridiculous by all senses of the word, but it's got 4 doors and it has a good safety rating, and he wanted it because everyone on the internet had one. Olivia also wants that same M3, but her mom's a mechanic. She's been around cars her whole life, and the car she actually buys is a 10th gen Honda Civic SI. She could chase and maybe get the M3 right now, but she already knows it's a car that you grow into. It's not the first thing that you buy. Now, even though they both want the same car, Olivia's actually gonna like her Civic more right now, and she's gonna like that M3 more later when she finally gets one, because by then she'll actually have something to compare it to. But why does that whole thing happen? Well, you can blame this guy. His name is David Hume. He wrote an essay called Of the Standard of Taste, and his argument was that an untrained preference and a practiced one aren't equal, even when both people are sure they're right. Liam's choice came from a curated internet feed and constantly shifting idea of what's cool, and Olivia's choice came from real experience through her parents. She's driven her mom's cars, she knows what the M3 asks of you and how expensive it gets, and she's also learned from conversations that her mom has had with her dad. He doesn't, and there lies a gap. Liam can't tell you why he likes his BMW, but Olivia can with her Civic, because she's borrowed her mom's answer first and then started building her own taste from there. Taste is something that you can refine every time you buy or work on a car. A trend is something that you keep replacing, and it's why Hume says that an experienced opinion is worth more, because it's been, and I quote, improved by practice. You following? Pay attention. Improved by practice, perfected by comparison, and cleared of all prejudice. Now, think about the last time you argued with someone on the internet who had, by all definitions, something nicer than you, but also knew less about it than you did. You have more practice, you probably have more to compare it to, and you probably have less prejudice because you've owned more. But they skipped all of that by just buying the thing. So my question is if Liam's taste came through social media feeds and Olivia's came from her parents, does that inherently mean that Olivia's taste is better? The argument of, has social media ruined the journey of building your own taste? That was the question that I didn't know was getting asked, and I couldn't find the answer until now. I had to chew on it a bit, and I think the answer was in what you told me on my Instagram. Over 240 comments were about learning what your dream car was. They got it through things like Need for Speed Most Wanted, Gran Turismo, and Fast and the Furious. Obviously, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, that influenced a lot of people. Now, whether you're willing to admit that or not is entirely up to you, but it did. I didn't learn about modified cars from a family member either. I learned about them, my earliest memory, at a Kmart. I was a kid. I went in with my $20 of allowance money after I mowed the lawn, and I wanted something to spend it on. So I stumbled across the Hot Wheels aisle. It was right next to the bikes back at Kmart or Walmart or whatever it was. And on the bottom were the RC cars. One was on sale. I saw a cool one. It had a long nose, and I knew nothing about it. That, my friends, was a Dodge Viper RC car, okay? I ended up buying the Dodge Viper game in like 1999, and I didn't stop playing it until like 2005. I know I'm dating myself here, but I promise the story has a point. That little piece of plastic, it changed my life. I never got into cars more than that. My parents were never into it. My family was never into it, which meant the only thing that I really had were video games and this little tiny RC car, right? Which means, based on everything I just told you, and probably the thousands of others, anyone who got into cars without a certified gearhead in the house is probably a poser. There are people, sociologists, that would tell you that. We should all give up now. But that's where I got stuck, because current day me, I feel pretty well invested in this, and you probably do too. If Olivia is going to like her car more, are the rest of us, people like me who just didn't even know you had a Dodge Viper, are we doomed forever to just be lesser than people who were authentically into car culture because their mom was a mechanic or their dad was a mechanic? This is a real thing that people deal with. This is a real thing that makes you probably feel like a big bag of shit. when somebody argues with you on the internet and they do know more than you. This is where I kind of want to get rid of Liam for a second and add you to the story, since half of the comments told me stories on how they got into cars that were just like me, through movies, through little cars, through things that maybe their parents didn't know anything about, but you wanted to get into it. Now, both childhoods had a taste in cars, just through different ways. The problem with the folks who learned about this culture or community through DVDs and movies is that maybe you probably will get ridiculed way more than Olivia, or you did. And that thing has a name. It comes from a sociologist named Pierre Bourdieu. I don't know how to say his name with an accent. Don't chastise me. His whole argument was that your taste isn't really yours. There's a term for that. It was called Habitus. If you're born into the car hobby, you didn't really choose your favorite car. Your upbringing chose it for you. In this case with Olivia, your parents chose it for you. You really didn't have much of a say. But because one group's taste was inherited while the other one was learned, one group gets treated like they're posers. That name, that divide, that feeling is very real. They call it the autodidact, but we don't need to get into that. The idea that the self-taught person, maybe you, almost always gets read as trying too hard or being cringe because the person born to it makes it look so effortless is a real thing. But they're not really trying harder than you. They just started earlier. They had a leg up. I experienced this when I started Wisconsin Car Enthusiasts Club, I was 19 years old. I knew nothing about cars back in 2011. I got blasted day and night because I didn't know how a carburetor worked, okay? But I didn't want to be bullied. So I started a club where the only rule was to not be a dick. Surprise. That was harder than everyone thought. Pun intended. And think about it just for a second. Has there ever been a time where you've tried to jump into a new chassis or a new car group and you get immediately shunned? And when you ask like why people are that way, people will be like, oh, well, they're just like that. You just got to prove you're not insert random vague insult here. But one taste isn't more real than the other. Yours had to be built from scratch, either in the right way or the wrong way. And we mistake that effort for fakeness. Those born into it, like Olivia, often don't realize the step up they've gotten over the years, inherently. So if we know that there's a more fundamental leg up when you're born into it financially, like Liam, or through family, like Olivia, and others are stuck with curating it yourself, even though it's seen as fake by the rest of the community, then how do you understand if what you like now is really what you like now? Well, for starters, it's just like anything else. It's practice. Learning taste in cars is a lot like practicing a sport. If you grew up your whole life practicing baseball and you weren't very good and you didn't like it, but you got a chance to try soccer, you may find out that you don't suck at all sports, just baseball, right? You won't know until you try. And practice is what helps everyone realize that the numbers people brag about, like horsepower, 0 to 60, cost, are all, on the surface, they're just vanity things. They mean less to brag about as you get more experienced with cars. Instead, what matters is how a car feels, why you like how it drives, what makes you smile with it. So when somebody who's been doing it for 20 years tells you that a 300 horsepower MacGuffin is better than your 500 horsepower or whatever, he might be posturing, but he also might just be sorting cars on a different axis than you because he has more practice. You're arguing about a number, and that person might be arguing about how he uses that number. And if you don't believe me, this guy here proves that point almost exactly. Initially, he wanted a Lotus. It's the cool kid. It's what you initially want when you want a small, fun, weird-looking car, and you have zero clue if it's gonna blow your back out. Spoiler alert, it will, especially the Mark 1s. Instead, he got an MR2 Spider. Similar handling, lightness, mid-engine layout at the cheaper Toyota prices with cash left over and space between his driving ability and the car's ability to match it. Practicing is available to both groups of people and you. And while Liam and Olivia's head start is real, it's not permanent. Practicing is what allows you to have experience to know that this guy is wrong. Silly goober. But that happens all the time, both in comments and on the internet and people who make content. Like, I've been confidently wrong, but the only thing that prevents it from happening again is practicing. The big thing here is that people want to skip practicing. Now, I know I'm hitting you with a lot, so you may have to grab a drink. That's fine. I'll take a martini, chocolate or espresso. I don't really care. There's actually a theory in psychology called symbolic self-completion. It's when you've decided that you're a kind of person, but you don't really have any proof yet. You don't have any practice to actually get out there and decide that. So you go get the symbols instead. It's like a fake it till you make it kind of thought process. And what happens is the less actual experience somebody had in the thing that they care about, the more they want to tell other people about it. The people who feel the least settled about their opinions sometimes talk the most, which is the whole thing, really. The biggest mistake you can make in this hobby, whether you're deciding if you actually like your car or not, isn't being ignorant. it's being arrogant, to why people will love cars longer in life. Right? Story time. All right. My first dream car was a Dodge Viper. I didn't even know it was a Dodge Viper. I just thought it was a cool looking car. But my second one that I thought had a long nose and a cool sporty window design was this. It was a 3000 GT VR4, and I knew nothing about it. But I watched the prelude scenes in Too Fast, Too Furious and decided it kind of looked like a Japanese Viper, and I don't know how that makes sense, but I wanted it. My parents weren't into cars. My family wasn't into cars. No one really knew I was into cars, and the only way I could experience it was through the internet and movies. I was also broke, so I wasn't a Liam, and I wasn't an Olivia. I saved my paychecks, and one day I found a 1994 3K for $4,000 a block from my high school. I bought it that same weekend after selling my much more reliable 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 SE. When I got into this thing, I realized two things. It was manual, and I had never driven a manual, and it was an SL. And I didn't even know that the VR4 was a thing. They're completely different cars. I didn't know the difference. Now, I bought a car I couldn't drive because a movie convinced me to. It took me another 4 or 5 years of doing cars to actually get a VR4. And I actually ended up owning 2 of them. By the time I actually got my dream car, I figured out I liked European cars more anyway, and that VR4s were just a nightmare to work on. And I'm glad it took me that long, because if I had gotten the right one at 17, I'd probably still be paying for it because my VR4 was a black void of repair bills. And for what it's worth, it's important to understand that. Now, I also think Liam's path is fine. Give him a few years, maybe a repair bill that he has to pay for, and he'll either fall more in love with it, or he'll sell his M3 and never think about cars again. Nobody knows which yet, including him. And now you could say I'm overthinking all of this. There's actually a guy who owns a G80 in the thread that I made and a permanently broken GTO, which is hilarious for the story. And he said kids should just drive what makes them happy, and they owe zero explanation for it. There's no reason to get this deep into understanding any of this. But it is that deep, because everything around you is telling you to speed up, to work harder, to buy it now, that your dream car is one course away, and if you don't have it yet, you're already behind. And what I'm challenging you and the entire algorithm of how people take in information these days is that you have to take your time. Building taste is the slow part. You can't speed it up. You can't pay your way any faster. And when I read all 521 answers, that's the one thing that stood out more than anything else. Almost no one actually bought the dream car they named, even though it was decades prior. Like EK9 Type R, the dude owns an EK3. FD RX-7, they've got an RX-8. R34 GTR has a G37X. Nobody's favorite story is about the car that they ended up getting. It's about the car they got instead of that car and the memories they made from it. That's what roots you into this hobby. The dream car was assigned to you by a movie or a video game, a family member, or a poster you weren't supposed to buy. The one in your driveway is the one you chose, with the money you actually had or didn't, with whatever you knew at the time. That starting point was determined by how you were raised and how much money your parents had or you had, sure. But where you go from there is what decides if you actually like what cars make you do, or whether you like what cars make others think of you. The dream car doesn't inherently expire, it just waits for you to be able to afford it and to deserve it in that order. So I think that's why everyone argues on the internet. Why you like what you like, why people are mad about those that have something they want, and why they don't have it yet. And I might be reading into this way too much, but it's one of the things that I try to understand because I'm not a very chalant person. I'm not nonchalant. I'm very chalant. And when I see hundreds, if not thousands of people arguing day and night, feeling terrible, getting belittled or bullied, or trying to understand why the thing that they actually enjoy is so painful to enjoy in 2026, I think a lot of it comes down to a lack of understanding as to where you are in just loving your hobby and your passion right now. And sometimes you just got to take a big breath, regardless of where you are in the journey, and just take a moment, breathe, relax. It's going to be okay. And that's my opinion, or not. Last week, I asked you what your dream car was. And if you want to check out that post, I'll put it somewhere. But today, I want to ask you maybe a little bit of a harder one. Is the dream car you wanted at the beginning of being a car enthusiast the same one you want now? And if so, how much time has actually elapsed? I'm really curious to understand this because I think what you're going to find is they're two different things the further apart you go. But I could be completely wrong. I'm AlexMartini. Hope you subscribed. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry for getting really deep on you. And we will maybe go back to non-deep videos next week. Who knows? I love you. Bye.